Hello， 大家好，欢迎来到10万个为什么。常常有人问我说你为什么要相信一个宗教？为什么要对这个宗教这么迷？今天呢，我们要分享一个非常有趣，但是又非常重要的题目，就是为什么基督教不是一个宗教？我邀请到了一位非常特别的嘉宾，他的名字叫 Dan Baumann。
Me and a friend felt like we were supposed to go on a 2-week visit into Iran, and had a great time, and fell in love with the country, fell in love with the people. While we were leaving the country, it was crossing the border, and it was about 6 hours later that they finally came back to us and said, there's a problem with your documents. And in my walk with the Lord and in many dangerous places, I've always seen God come through. And all of a sudden, the thought hit me, well, what if this is different? They separated me and my friend, took me into another room, and there they beat me for about 6 hours, kicking me and hitting me. After those 6 hours, they dragged me back down to the lobby where I met my friend again, who had been beaten in another room. They put us in prison clothes, and they blindfolded us again, and then they led us down this basement, and they put me into one prison cell and my friend into another one. And there I was in prison in Iran. It was out of my hands. There was nothing I could do. Either God would do a miracle or I would stay there. There was no sense of feeling God. I felt like God was far away. All I could really trust in was His character, and that His character would be true no matter what I was feeling and no matter what circumstance I was going through. They put me in a cell in isolation, had a light in one corner, and that was on 24 hours a day. It was in the winter time. There was actually snow outside, but the heater didn't work well. They only let me out of the room to be interrogated, which was once a day or sometimes not at all. And then they would lead me down this hallway and take me into the interrogation room, which was an ugly room. It had blood stains on the floor, very dark and murky. It was definitely the most terrifying part of the whole experience. The beatings would start, and it would be slapping in the face, hitting in the stomach, sometimes kicking. I struggled with faith. Was God with me? Did He love me? If God's good, why would He allow me through the situation? And I remember one day I woke up, and I was done, inside. And I remember waking up that day thinking to myself, if I'm going to be here the rest of my life, why not check out? My only thought was not to stay there. And the only way not to stay there was to die. I stuck my head in the sink, I filled it up, and tied one end to a bracket, put it over my head, and then hopefully would tie the other end tight, thinking that, with my head in the water, in a few minutes I'd be gone. 4 times I tried to kill myself, but every time I tried, I was too scared to tie the other end. And I'll never forget the last time. Again, I tried. Again, I was like, come on, do it. And again, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't tie it tight. And I remember at that moment jerking my head out of the water. And if I was ever aware of my brokenness, I was aware of it at that moment. And I remember falling down on the ground, and I was broken. And if I was ever aware of my shame, I was aware of my shame at that moment. And I remember lying down on the ground. In that moment, all of a sudden, the room fills with this glorious light. And I turn around to see what's going on, and there is Jesus. And He's standing in front of me with this big grin and smile on His face. And it was at that lowest point that He met me. And He looks at me, and He stretches out His hands, and He puts them underneath me like this. And in the vision, as I see Jesus, He looks at me and says this. He says, Dan, I love you, and I promise to carry you through this time. And from that day until this day, I've never had those thoughts again. And that's who Jesus is. He meets us at our lowest, and He can rescue us from the depths of us. And He wants to give us life in the midst of the pain of life. And He meets us, and He loves us, and He wants to rescue us no matter what we're going through.
say 你好, do you have any other words in Chinese?
谢谢. Hot pot.
That's your favorite food? Favorite
No.
Chinese food?
No. But yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know much Chinese, but I do love the country. I've been there 15 times. All over the country, and I love China.
You have been to China many times and you have met Chinese people, talked to them. So, in your opinion, what's the biggest obstacle for them to know Jesus?
I think they just don't know that he likes them, that he loves them. They think Christianity is religion.
Yeah.
And so they can choose that religion or the one that their parents or their society chooses.
Why Christianity is not a religion?
Christianity is not a religion because we're invited to have a real relationship with Jesus, with God. And so it's not a religion because I'm in a relationship with God. He loved me, he gave his life for me, and I accepted that. And when I accept it, I'm actually in a relationship. So I'm his son, you know, women are his daughter, and they belong to God. So there's no religion, it's a real relationship. So I wake up every day and I walk with him, and I talk with him, and I have conversation with him. So I don't know what to do except to run to him because I gave my life to him. So they don't know that we're talking about a relationship, and a relationship with someone who made them. And if they would discover that, I think they'd want it. But they don't know that about God, that there is a God who knows them and who loves them. And my hope is that they discover that he's there and he loves them.
God began to challenge me with his love for our enemies. And he said this, he's like, Dan, ask me what I think about this man. And he asked me the question about the man who was my interrogator, the man who beat me, the man who seemed to hate me the most. And it was a few days into it that I finally asked God, okay, yeah, what do you think of this man? And at that moment, yeah, my heart opened up and I began to see God's love for this man. How he loved him from the beginning, how he made him, how he loved his family. And I'll never forget the last day I saw him. I remember on this day thinking, oh my gosh, what's he gonna do today? And at that moment, I remember looking at him and I said this. I said, sir, if I'm gonna see you the rest of my life, every day, why don't we become friends? He's like, no, that's impossible. And I said, sir, you can start by telling me your name. I heard these guards talking about the foreigners, me and my friend. They're Christians, they follow Jesus. And then another one said, oh, these foreigners, they knew they could have problems when they came here, but they have purpose. They've got a reason to live and a reason to die, and that's what I want. And I heard 3 of these men say, yeah, today we are gonna follow Jesus. We are gonna follow the way. And if that was part of the reason why God allowed me down there, yeah, so be it. And just like, yeah, those guards in prison, I long for people to know today how good Jesus is, that he can rescue us in the midst of pain, in the midst of our shame, our brokenness. He wants to meet us, and that he is good no matter what we're going through, and that he loves us.
The guy who beat you every day, did you have any struggling when God wanted you to forgive or to, have that conversation with him?
When I was getting beaten, I felt like God wanted to teach me how to love my enemies. And of course, at the beginning, I knew God meant that man who was beating me, but there was nothing inside of me that wanted to love him. No, I wanted to hate him because it was very unjust, it was very wrong. So it wasn't that I was so holy that I accepted. No, I was not happy to love him. But it was very quickly that I said, God, open my eyes. And I began to realize that he hated me, not because he really hated me, but because it was his job, because it was what he was doing. But more than that, I realized that at that moment, that still God liked him, and that God loved him. And so I said, God, change my heart, help me think about him the way you do, care for him the way you do. And by God's mercy, he helped me. And he changed my heart. It was probably took about a week where I started to say nice things about him, bless him, love him. The beatings continued. He continued to hate me. But something changed in my heart because I saw him through the eyes of God. That God did love him. That God did want good things for him. So I started to bless him. And it changed my life because, I realized that I could bless him. And that I could say good things about him. I could love him. That was the best thing to do. And I had to entrust even my own situation into God's hands.
And I stuck out my hand to him and I said, "Sir, let's be friends." And as I stuck out my hand to shake his hand, he just stood there and he froze. And after a few minutes, he started to shake. And then all of a sudden, I saw his hand creep towards mine and he shook my hand. And as he's shaking my hand, I saw these tears start to roll down his face. And for about 10 minutes, he just shook my hand and tears streaming down his face. And he finally looks at me and he says this. He's like, "Dan," and he calls me by my name. "My name is Razak, and I would love to be your friend." And it caused me to see that there is no heart too hard for Jesus. That he can change the hardest heart. God taught me to love my enemy.
He can change the heart that's the most upset with us, hates us, evil towards us. He can change that heart. And he wiped the tears from his eyes and said, "Dan, I'm so glad we're friends." And I saw God change his heart. And that's who Jesus is.
That's the real gospel.
It is. It's that real, that he could change our heart.
Yes. Wow. You were in Afghanistan for 10 years.
Yes.
How could we pray for Afghanistan right now?
We just gotta pray for God's love for them to come to them. They would discover God's love for them. We don't know how the government's gonna react or change or develop, the new government. But we do know that they're heavy, strong Muslims. So we need to pray for those who are following Jesus, that they would want to continue, that they would not be killed, that they would be safe. But more than that, we've got to pray that people's eyes would be open, that the religion of Islam is not the answer. Simply Jesus is the answer. And that's my prayer across Afghanistan today.
Last question. So how do you develop your relationship with God?
I have to accept the fact that he likes me and loves me. I run to God every day and say, "God, open my eyes to who you are. Open my eyes to how much you love me and care for me." I try to go to bed and wake up every day with Jesus loves me. So that becomes the truth, more than questions or more than things I don't know. God help me. God open my eyes. Needing God is one of the most greatest gifts of my life. I always am aware of my need of God. And I love that. God, I need you. Open my eyes. Show me who you are. I pray that every day, many times. And it's such a beautiful way to live.
听完 Dan Baumann 的分享，你有什么想法呢？欢迎给我留言。如果你喜欢这一期节目的话呢，也鼓励大家可以把这个视频分享出去，能够祝福更多的人。好了，今天的节目就到这里，愿上帝祝福您，拜拜。